Welcome to the Matt Waller Podcast, sponsored by New Road Capital Partners, where we look at success at the intersection of technology, logistics, supply chain, retail, and CPG, which we also call the retail value chain. I want to clarify that this podcast is distinct from my responsibilities as a professor in the Sam M. Walton College of Business. Nonetheless, it aligns with my aspiration to provide practical insights to professionals in business by showcasing companies and people that can enhance your ability to manage, lead, strategize, and market effectively in the retail value chain. Before we dive into today's exciting episode, I'd like to take a moment to express my deepest gratitude to our founding sponsor, New Road Capital Partners. New Road Capital Partners invests in proven and innovative technologies, products, and services that serve existing and unmet needs in the marketplace. New Road partners with growth-oriented companies in supply chain and logistics and innovative consumer companies. As experienced entrepreneurs and operators, the New Road team prides itself on the high level of collaboration it brings to each of its investments. New Road's team of investment professionals and operating partners have deep, relevant investing and operating experience, including significant experience leading large divisions of enterprise companies and building businesses from scale to concept to realization. To learn more, visit newroadcp.com. I also want to disclose that I'm an advisor to New Road. I would like to take this moment to recognize podcastvideos.com for being our provider of podcasts. Their mission is simple: to streamline the process of creating podcast videos. They're equipped with industry-leading equipment and streamlined processes, and their studio and services save you time, money, and hassle. I'm very pleased with the services they provide me. Now, without further ado, let's get started with today's episode. I am really excited about this podcast today of Shavir Mirpuri, who is the founder and CEO of Insite AI. So everyone's talking about AI right now. This is someone who has a lot of expertise in AI and has been engaged in it for quite some time. He formed Insite AI in 2019. But I'll tell you a little bit about his background and a little bit about what we're going to talk about during the podcast today. But I'm telling you, this is worth listening to. If you're in CPG or retail, you definitely should listen to this podcast. If you're interested in AI, I would also recommend that you listen to it. But Shavir is the founder and CEO of Insite AI and the leader in AI-driven category and revenue growth management solutions for top consumer brands. Under Shavir's leadership, Insite AI has tripled in revenue in 15 months and raised $19 million in funding from New Road Capital and M12. And M12 is Microsoft's venture fund. Shavir is founder of Insite AI, and he did that in 2019, as I mentioned earlier. He wanted to help CPG companies manage their retail channels and relationships, optimize revenue growth, and gain operational efficiencies. The company's platform provides data-driven recommendations for assortment, space, pricing, and trade promotion strategies, all focused on accelerating growth. What's really interesting about their technology is it's got a big engine, but it also allows you, with your experience and knowledge and expertise, to interact with it in a way that drives value. And he's already working with some of the largest companies in CPG. Beyond Insite AI, Shavir actively invests in and advises AI and automation companies across retail, CPG, e-commerce, ad tech, construction, and legal tech. His expertise in AI, innovation, and entrepreneurship has been sought after by leaders like the CEO of Walmart, German Chancellor Merkel, and many others. And you'll hear a little bit more about the circles that he travels in as you listen to this. Shavir's been involved in acquisition IPO of 2 tech companies as part of the executive management team since its startup phase. Recently, Shavir was named to the Forbes Technology Council, which we'll talk about, an invitation-only community that serves world-class technology executives. And he's often a featured speaker at major industry conferences, including TEDx. But as we go through this, you're going to learn a little bit about how he uses this technology for SKU, store-level types of recommendations around assortment, price elasticity, and many other variables. You're going to learn about how he's using the $19 million that he raised from New Road Capital and Microsoft's M12 venture fund. You're going to learn about what types of leadership and strategies he's used to be able to really drive the remarkable growth that they've had, and how he has advised top leaders and his strategy for advising top leaders. I also ask him a little bit about kind of a personal question, and that is, when you lead a new company like this, it can be very stressful for many reasons. All of you who are listening who have led early stage companies of any sort, particularly AI, technology companies, will know that it's a very stressful task. And so I asked him that personal question, and I think you'll enjoy his answer. But this is definitely worth listening to. I hope you enjoy it. Shavir, you founded Insite AI in 2019, which is kind of interesting because you founded it right before the pandemic, which threw everything out into an uproar. But you founded it to really help major consumer brands manage their channel relationships and drive growth using AI. And of course, many of the major consumer brands were having lots of problems then. They were having maybe stockouts were the biggest problem, but they also had problem securing transportation and all kinds of things. But I'm curious, what was your vision for the company, and what problem were you really trying to solve?
So the vision I had for the company was I wanted a Procter & Gamble, I wanted a Coca-Cola, I wanted a L'Oreal Cosmetics to be able to one day, and that day actually is already happening today, be able to negotiate and plan in their internal environment and with their retail partners across all their categories and across all their retailers, and make decisions in assortment, pricing, trade, use of space, and so on and so forth, in the most thoughtful way possible. And the vision was, with a click of a few buttons, they'd be able to get exactly modeled out how their desired assortment plan or pricing strategy would play out in terms of sales and growth and incrementality. I wanted that to be right down to the SKU level, right down to the individual store level, right down to the individual day level. I wanted them to be able to know the effects of these decisions long in advance, accurately. The vision was and is to be able to let them use multiple opinions and data sources to come up with the most holistic decision. The vision was allowing them to explain and understand how they got there through incrementality understanding, price elasticities. And the vision was also to allow them to get there extremely fast. And if they weren't satisfied with that answer, have technology recommend to them thousands of others of ways to effectively do that pricing or assortment, trade, use of space strategy. And that whole vision around enablement, effectively, was what I wanted large consumer brands to have. That's the whole reason we started the company, is to empower these brands to be able to work in such a supercharged way that they'd never even previously thought of possible. And that's possible now.
Well, And that makes sense. And you really see artificial intelligence doing that in so many ways in general right now, especially large language models you see. Empowering people in terms of being creative and editing and creating images, et cetera, et cetera. Insight AI has achieved remarkable growth under your leadership, tripling in revenue in just the last 15 months. And I know as an entrepreneur that is very challenging to achieve. Would you mind sharing some of your strategies and approaches that you really attribute to this rapid success?
That's such an interesting question because you couldn't take what I'm about to say and then just copy and paste it into the next business and the next business and the next. It's so situational.
Yeah.
Here's what I can tell you. The first step for us was keep quiet and invest a lot in your technology and your capability to make sure it's just really good. And all those concepts I talked about can be put together, actually work, and simplified and demonstrated to the market. Because when you're talking about a game-changing technology like AI, or you're talking about changing or evolving or enabling the way that large, perhaps even bureaucratic organizations like major consumer packaged goods companies work, you have to make it simple. And being able to create that technology in a way that wraps it all really simply and presents that to the customer. So in one phone call, they look at it and they say, that makes sense. I get everything you've said. I can see it. I can feel it. I can realize the benefits. Let's go. That's the first step, right? So have a really great product. The second thing I'd say is bring on board the smartest people in the room who are change agents and innovators. People who come from the consumer brands in the retail space and have personally faced this problem and tried to solve it before, and bring them in roles into a business, into your business, into a company where they advise and help customers through this exact problem. That way customers can say, you guys really get it. You understand the dynamic of how our category works, of how our customers work. You understand the dynamics of how we make decisions as an organization. That's
this is a problem a lot of technology companies have. Because technology companies many times are created by entrepreneurs who they'll find a problem and they'll come up with a solution, but it doesn't mean they understand the problem in a rich way. And
right.
So what you're saying is you've actually been diligent about hiring people who really do understand the problem.
That's right. And the third thing I'd say, which is relevant to both of those things, is don't go off into an industry where you either don't understand the problem, at least to a medium encroaching on expert level. Fortunately, I understood it from an e-commerce point of view. And the technology and solution set, the AI piece, I didn't wake up one day. I wouldn't recommend people to wake up and say, great, I'm using AI. You have to understand the statistical, the scientific, the commercial pathway of actually how to build this stuff out, how to bring teams together to create this stuff. So I would say just getting really tight on the people and really tight in the technology and starting from a place of, hey, I get this space, makes it natural. That oozes a ton of confidence in front of the customers. That oozes trust. They look at that and say, you've got people, you get it, you've got technology. I see the parts where you're missing. Let me help you out. I want to be part of this journey. So that helps. And
one thing that comes to mind about that too is that if you think about AI in general,
right,
to get AI to the point of 80% accuracy isn't too bad.
Right.
To get it to 90% takes a huge increase, 95% huge increase. So if you're talking about an automated vehicle, okay, there's danger with AI. But when you look at things like writing a poem, creating an assortment plan, because, if someone's using generative AI, for example, in writing a poem, there's give and take there. It's not like you say, write this poem, that won't be a good poem. And you're using AI and creating assortment plans. You need people who really understand assortments. You wouldn't trust a black box to just come up with an assortment. So their input is really important. And the idea of getting to that 99% accuracy is kind of ridiculous because there is some art and science in this both.
Yeah, there's a lot of art and science in it. So, and what I've described actually, if you take a step back, is exactly that. You got to get the art and science nailed. That's what's going to achieve growth. AI is a funny one. You're exactly right. When you think about autonomous vehicles, you have to be 99.99%, on it. When you think about predicting the weather tomorrow, well, who cares? It's either going to be a light jacket or a t-shirt, right? So we could be a little bit, the key thing about, the CPG world is it's been years and years and years where they've sat on information, anecdotes, and data, and yet they have relied on opinion, gut feel, trade dollars, money to effectively get through the negotiation and planning process. I would say that if they could do it from a place of effectively saying, we understand the performance, historic performance of our products, our places, our stores, our time frames. We understood how they form at certain price points on promotion in a very big data way. Have that information crunched and harmonized and use that as a layer to then start making predictions of what can happen in the future, adjusted by the art, adjusted by how they control supply, adjusted by, nuances and rules and information they as a human have. That's going to really supercharge them, right? That takes a process that maybe was deciding how one Walmart or a small set of Walmart stores would be assorted, and taking maybe weeks to come up with that answer and draw that on a planogram. It'll take it down to quite literally seconds to have the entire 4,600 Walmart stores planned full stop 100 which ways, and you can just pick the best one and tweak that and use your human knowledge for it. So I don't see this world where AI is going to just randomly take over people's jobs in the retail sector. I see it as one where this is going to supercharge people for sure.
Insite AI raised $19 million in Series A last year from New Road Capital and M12, which is Microsoft's venture fund. What are you going to use this funding for, and what's next for Insite AI's growth?
Right. Well, the pageant answer is we're going to hire the best people and keep building the best products and serving that to market. The truth is, when you think about consumer brands, they need an oxygen tank. We need an oxygen tank to go deep dive into the ocean of these large organizations and effectively say, look, let's not try and solve the AI problem. Let's not try and solve the pricing issue. Let's not try and improve how you do trade at Kroger within 5 seconds. Because in truth, what happens with consumer brands is they need time. They need time to figure out who owns this. How does this change my negotiation? What does this now mean for my teams and how they work? Who holds the budget for this stuff? How much should we invest in this stuff? So that 19 million, Matt, is effectively to say, go out there and educate the world's biggest brands in personal care products, consumer products, food, beverage, you name it, and help them figure out their strategy of how all those factors I just described now changes organization. And once that clicks, the technology, the benefits, it'll all speak for itself. Organizations take time to adopt, to change, to understand how to make the pieces fit together. So that's what that 19 million is for, is actually for us to give that to customers in many ways and say, we're investing in you. We're investing in giving you the best people, the best expertise. We're taking time to let this all shake out. And at the end of that process, you're going to wake up and realize that, well, it's time to get going. So it's money to do it the proper way and truly affect the course of these industries, as opposed to, more widgets or more ping pong tables. That's what the money's for. It's to invest in a multi-billion-dollar change.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about assortment planning and pricing, there's a lot of people engaged in it that haven't really thought through all of the econometric kinds of issues associated with it. And of course, you wouldn't want to educate them on that directly, but indirectly you can. And so I'm curious. I know you have provided, Shavir, you've provided Walmart's CEO on guidance to Walmart's CEO on AI strategy. You've advised German Chancellor Merkel on innovation. How do you approach advising prominent leaders, and what kind of insights have you gained from those interactions?
First of all, you should pick and choose. You shouldn't just say, oh, this person's in my inbox. This person's asked me to be on the board. This person's asked me to speak at this event. Let's go for it. You really got to pick and choose who you really like. Truly, really like. Don't do it for the name. Do it based on someone you really like, and you feel like you're going to get something out of it as much as they're going to get out of it too. Prominent leaders think in sound bites. So they need sound bites. They need Forbes style articles. They need, did you know that Google is investing in this many people in artificial intelligence and is investing across 15 companies in the retail sector, which means that 40% of this entire workforce's work is now going to be accelerated by blah, blah, blah. Did you know that in the future, most customers will shop this way? The way things are panning out is blah, blah. They love these sound bites because they take these sound bites and they use it as inspiration to have other leaders who report into them really go do something about it, right? That leader isn't going to do something about it, but they're going to be the inspiration or person with the soundbite, the impactful soundbite, to cascade through their peers, their other leaders, and the peoples in their organization. So that's what I would say is one thing I've learned is give them the sound bites. The other thing I've learned is just ask them what's top of their mind. And for instance, the start of Insite AI, I believe, is credited to the fact that, the Walmart executives really felt that large consumer brands could do so much better in category management and revenue growth management. And that was me asking them the question, what is top of your mind? And they said the merchants are just frustrated by the strategies they're constantly taking. So as part of a consultative or advisory, relationship, the big insights I find are not these kind of major proclamations or insider bits of detail or whatever that I take away. Rather, it's when you really get down to what's on the individual's mind when they're not reporting to Wall Street, they're not in PR mode, they're not actually in meetings, or they're not having to make decisions. You really start to realize, hey, this is the top opportunity or problem that is faced by this industry. That must be faced by other leaders, by other folks in similar industries. So I would tend to say that that's my number one, kind of insight, if you will, from leaders is you just have to ask what's top of your mind, what's keeping you up at night, and you really start to get to the heart of exactly how their business or their country or their organization ticks. What have you found when you talk to leaders as the most insightful thing that you take away?
Well, I think you're right. You need to know what's top of mind. And I really believe this, and I practiced it for at least the second half of my career. really focusing on asking questions to people that I'm trying to learn from or advise in some way. Because it's real easy to come in with a hammer and want to hammer everything that looks like it could be a nail.
Right.
And you can't help, as an individual, I have certain skills and capabilities. I don't have everything. There's only certain things I can do. So, I think asking lots of questions helps, and also asking psychographic questions. There's questions about to try to draw out, what do they long for? What do they value? That's something I use quite a bit. Now, so Shavir, you really are in some pretty impressive circles, and I know recently you were invited to join a invitation-only community of top technology executives.
Right.
And it's called the Forbes Technology Council. And I'm just curious, what are you looking forward to gaining from that network and that community? And what are you going to be contributing?
So that kind of relates to what we just discussed. Let me tell you something interesting and maybe a little bit controversial. When I've had the opportunity to, not those two, not the CEO of Walmart or German Chancellor Angela Merkel, but when I've, for the first half, maybe 2/3 of my career, had to, or was in a privileged position to provide advice to government officials, to, tertiary education organizations, to corporate leaders, whatever it is. The main thing I found is I could give them the most sound, meaningful, relevant advice, and they're just going to do nothing about it. Nothing happens. They're not going to do anything about it. And I'm kind of at peace with that. I've realized that they're bombarded with people in their ear all day telling them what to do or putting in some 2 cents. And I've realized that, hang on, that's just not going to benefit them, and I get nothing out of this either. So the Forbes Council thing, as you kind of point that out, I think is really interesting, because I'm going into that not as oh, great, this is the CIO of this major corporation, or, okay, great, this is a founder that's just raised, $50 million and needs some guidance on technical strategy, go-to-market strategy, raising the next round, whatever. Particularly as it pertains to AI. The way I look at that engagement is pretty simple, which is I'm going to just, rather than educate or, tell folks what they need to be thinking about, I'm going to listen. I'm going to ask the questions. I'm in there to find out what's top of mind, what challenges they're experiencing, where they feel like the industry is going, where they feel talent needs to be developed, where they feel investment dollars need to go to, how they feel certain AI companies or startups or ideas are working, and which are the ones that are, not working. I like learning more about the problems, the pitfalls, the challenges that people have, so I can take that in what I do and find inspiration from it and apply that to the main thing I've got going on, right, in the consumer brand sector with Insite AI. And what I take from that more are parallels from different industry that I could apply. What I give to it, honestly, is relationships and contacts, which is you ought to talk to this individual. You ought to, meet this founder. You ought to meet this interesting AI scientist, or this PhD who's been cited this many times in this scientific paper, who has potentially got the next breakthrough here in forecasting or optimization or reinforcement learning and large language models or whatever. I feel like people are really, really, really valuable to other people. So that's the most valuable thing I can do, is extend my network to those individuals.
Well, I know you have experience investing in and advising many AI and automation companies across various industries. But I'm curious specifically, what do you see as the biggest opportunities for AI to transform consumer brands and retail? And what technologies and applications excite you most? And part of the reason I try to read something about AI and automation on a regular basis, every day if possible. And it seems like I see lots of applications, but given my interest in supply chain logistics, CPG, and retail, I don't see as much going on there. So I'd love to hear what your thoughts are about that.
I think that the opportunity for consumer brands, first of all, is in data-driven decision-making. So this may not sound like the most exciting predictive use case, but there's a whole pain around taking panel data, sales data, data from different third-party sources, Nielsen, IRI, retail data sources, macroeconomic effects, what was on the planograms last year, the promotional calendars, the packaging on the product, the pricing sheets, the loyalty information, and. It's just insane. It's an insane amount. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And none of those data points really talk to each other properly. They're not homogenized. It's difficult to harmonize due to the way that those data points, form up. Being able to take all those data points together, make them compatible, and layer them on a time series, right? To effectively say, okay, this is the time at which different events happen. And to just even use that for analysis, I think is massive, right? That is massive. You can't go and negotiate with your retailer. You can't go and negotiate even with your CFO as a large consumer brand without the data at your fingertips. And if you speak from a place of science, speaks from a place of being able to layer that art over the data, you're really empowered. So I think data formation is a big one. The next one I would say is forecasting. And, you've advocated and talked about this, as have many academic experts over the years, around being able to predict demand. And that's not just predicting demand, that's also predicting profitability, that's predicting sales, that's predicting units, that's predicting changes in loyalty, that's predicting, change to markets, et cetera, et cetera. But fundamentally, it's, at its core, demand forecasting. Being able to look ahead a year, 6 months, and receive a report, right, or a graph or a tool, and look at that tool and say, I know exactly how my products are going to perform at this price point, and what the sales are going to be at that SKU level, at that store level. Forecasting techniques these days have become a lot more local and granularized, right? So being able to really get down to that degree of a specific consumer in a specific location for a specific set of products, that I think is really powerful. Explainability in AI has taken leaps and bounds, and it's partly more around interpretability as opposed to explainability, and being able to interpret, why is it saying that at this price point we're going to sell this many units? The price elasticity calculation, cross elasticity calculation, the validation of which data points have the biggest effect on a consumer's propensity to pay at a certain price point and what that demand is, and being able to correlate those variables and statistically validate that and tell that story in a simple way. I think interpretable AI is a really big one. And then, as you look at the logistics area, optimization is a big one. There's two types of optimization, right? There's the field of optimization that deals with business rules and constraints. And that's fantastic. That's an automation play to make decisions a lot more codified. There's the other part of automation, which is, what are you indexing? Well, what are you goal seeking the AI use case to help you achieve? So whilst I or you may be able to think of one way to have your product range at a Walmart store, an AI model is able to take, or a set of models able to take that goal seek saying, well, I'm trying to protect the private label, introduce this innovation, and win this much space in order to have this level of sales and minimize this level of out of stock. You could put in multiple goal seeks. And what it's able to do is it's able to run so many different scenarios to achieve that end result. So you can filter through and find that best scenario. So I'd say optimization is another branch of AI that I think is, really exciting. I will say that what doesn't help, honestly, is, and I'd love to hear your take on it, is when themes like generative AI sort of get peanut buttered all over a certain industry or a certain use case, saying, well, it's all about generative AI. Let's generate stuff. Because what that does is it actually instills confusion in business leaders around what this technology is. Who's just selling me something? Is this actually relevant? What is this going to do? Is this witchcraft? Is this real? It fuels skepticism when people take buzzwords and unfortunately apply them to a sector and assume that it's going to make an impact. Now, no doubt that generative AI can work in the world of marketing for consumer brands, for retailers, to present to customers highly targeted, curated campaigns that would resonate with their buying behavior. There's no doubt about that. But that is a very specific use case that needs to be thought through in its own accord. We can't just take these broad themes of generative AI and then start confusing other more fundamental concepts around data harmonization, forecasting, optimization, which are other branches in the AI family, which are real and have been happening for years. You talked about back in the 90s, you really got into this world here in Bentonville off the back of Walmart as a novel concept, sharing data with their supplier, right? With Procter & Gamble. So this idea of using data, of using statistics, of using modeling techniques, econometrics, machine learning, these are just variations on the theme that make it even more and more powerful, right, over time. So I'd say it's the same possibilities and dreams of before, just extremely realizable, more and more so, and more practical, more simplified today.
I totally agree with you. There's, of course, I remember more than 10 years ago applying a type of AI, neural networks, to some problems around, shelf layout, for example. And, but it is funny, you're right, people will use these things like, well, we can forecast demand of some kind of shampoo at store 100 for Wednesday of next week. Good luck. That thing sells once every month,
Right.
But so now
what's the point? What's the value of that really?
Yeah.
Is it to the retailer, to the consumer, Of course, there's a lot of money in out of stocks, in stocks. That's a very fundamental concept that, you ingrained in the fundamental understanding of people in the retail world. But what does that really mean if you can only ship to the store at a certain cadence? What does that really mean if it comes in a certain pallet size? What does it really mean if you're only going to manufacture so much? And what does it really mean if actually you only wanted to sell a few units because you want customers to trade up?
Yeah.
Well,
so, and for the extreme example I gave where you're selling one a month, if you've got a case pack of 12 and it goes to the store, you're going to stock out once that year possibly.
That's right.
Probably not twice. But at any rate, the other issue is that, the forecast can only get you so far because many times the on-hand accuracy at stores is not as good as it should be. And so I think your approach of, rather than just focusing on forecasting, but looking at the bigger picture, price elasticities, position elasticities, et cetera, but making it easy for a user without an understanding of those advanced concepts to be able to see options and then apply their skills and knowledge and expertise to interact with the technology. I agree. I think that's the future, because a lot of times it almost sounds like some of these companies are coming in saying, oh, we've got this black box that's going to be able to do everything because it has generative AI.
Right.
And that's just not true still. And I don't think it ever will be, unless you can actually use the AI to control people. And then you might be able to do that.
Ironically, right. So I would recommend to leaders that, and this is what I observe in some good leaders, is they ask the person coming into their room, number one, do you actually have something, or are you just paying a bunch of people to one-off do it, right?
Yeah.
And you'll start immediately from there filtering out a large number of salespeople who are just going to pass the buck onto a data scientist to write some code, come up with a bit of an answer. So have them ask, what do you actually have? The second question, they should ask is, okay, great. So you're here. Explain it to me. You said generative AI. Explain it to me. And either that person will crumble or that person will realize, well, hang on, reinforcement learning, large language models, transformers have no involvement whatsoever, or very little involvement in this use case. For instance, we're discussing around thinking of pricing, assortment, promo, strategies and tactics. So I think, that there's a lot of importance there that the industry has to put on sort of filtering and really just focusing on what is real, what is today, how is it going to work? Great, let's get going. As opposed to worrying, about the topic or being blindsided or oversold or confused by these two scary letters of AI. We have to get practical on it. Yeah.
Absolutely. But, Xavier, building an AI company really requires strong data, technical and industry talent. How have you been able to attract this talent to Insite AI? And what's your strategy for developing and retaining that talent? Because there's a lot of people competing for the same talent out there.
Well, in the early days, first of all, to get the data, we went to the families who owned large retail organizations, large CPGs, and said, look, we're not going to your CEO, we're going to you, the shareholders, founders of these companies, and saying, provision us secure and temporary access to the data, pay for it in sweat equity, and we'll use that to ensure that we're building a platform and building AI models and building solutions that actually works, right? So yeah, you have to start from a place of data, and you have to do it in a overboard, way. Once you have that, that's what you take to talented people in the industry and say, I have the oil, I have the fuel here to now really apply your capabilities and skill set. We're not starting from scratch. We have the data. Data scientists are everywhere. They are in the energy sector, for what we do, they're in the energy sector. They are in the finance, they're in the finance sector. They are in banking. They are in climate. They are in any field that basically requires forecasting and optimization. And I think to attract this level of talent, what you have to do is you have to take them out of a corporation and effectively say, don't be a cog in the wheel, be leading the change that you're going to be able to take to the industry. And not only that, what you're going to be doing is you're actually going to be building something that people can use, as opposed to being a gun for hire or being able to just ad hoc answer this problem. That resonates a lot with talented people, is being able to affect change, not be a cog in the wheel, and instead truly build something that an industry is going to use, as opposed to working in a task-based way at their current role. Now, as we scaled the business and brought on people from adjacent sectors and have something, the same is also true of I go out there and intentionally network with the best VPs and SVPs of merchandising and merchandising operations at the top 20 retailers, right? They're not our customers. We don't work with retailers. But I go to the people that my customers need to negotiate against and say, how do we get better? What should brands be doing? What should we offer as a business? I think they realize that through an impartial party like us, they can affect change also in the whole industry and not be part of solving this week's out of stock or next week's price negotiation or the next 6 months worth of manufacturing, conversation and negotiation of who's going to be the advisor and captain and whatnot. But rather they can go and educate business leaders on the other side of the desk and be armed with this technology that has been built off very talented people and great data. So it's a step-by-step process. To retain the talent, you have to make them feel like a founder in the company. And it's not a feeling, it's an actual fact. And I'm not talking about equity or any of those things which are important. It's giving them the ability to hire their own team. It's giving them the front seat in board conversations and being part of capital raise decisions, see where we're going. It's truly making the customer see them, not me or any other peers, as the CEO of that practice area. And it's about asking them to effectively not take to always take an entrepreneurial lean towards solving problems. And effectively they're saying with the comforts of someone else's risk, my risk, investor risk, they have the ability to be a founder in a company and the benefits of that growth, that impact, that freedom that helps in the market. One thing I'll add, is it's okay if people want to leave your business and go do something else that is much higher paid, or they want to leave your business and go off and do something that is more interesting to them. You have to think about business in the long term, right? That person, sure, they were there for a year, they were there for 3 years, they got poached, whatever. Go back. What's the vision of what you're truly trying to do here? So what if it doesn't happen through your own company, right? So what if they don't fulfill that vision through your company? They go do it for your competitor. They go do it for your customer. They go do it for, someone else. I'm more linked to the vision and ensuring those people are developed and happy to be successful in their lives, medium term, long term, outside and after their career at any company I'm a shareholder or investor in, right? And that kind of bigger picture view ends up being why people stay. And it ends up becoming the reason why when people leave, they come back. Or if they leave and they never come back, you're still fueling and accelerating growth into the exact sector that you are trying to affect change into, right? So I take a long view on those things with regards to people's retention. I want them to stay in the industry. I don't want them to, stay at my company specifically. I want them to be passionate and tied to the cause.
Well, one thing that I've noticed over the years, when these technology companies like yours, I mean, you've got a small company. Even
right.
after a few rounds of financing, these companies are pretty small compared to the size of the companies they're trying to partner with. I guess no matter how big you are, if you're partnering with Walmart, you're small. But you've done a lot of partnering with large CPG companies. How do you do that? It sounds pretty challenging. Now, I know you've got people in your company with experience there, but still, it sounds pretty challenging.
So my friendly advice to others is, when you watch those TV shows or those crime movies or whatever it is, and They have this almost fictional screen of all the characters involved in a crime and how they're related. And it's the spider web, it's the photo and the pins and the wires connecting, the string connecting each other with notes. Is build that map of your desired partner, of your desired organization that you want to be your customer or whatever. Don't look at it as Kellogg's or as Tyson Foods or as PepsiCo. Look at it as Anna Smith, John Henderson. Look at these as real, actual people. Get to know those people. Think about all the other actors in the movie that you're going to partner with. Okay, there's procurement, there's IT, there's their leaders, there's their teams, there's their operation teams who are going to take the decisions we make and roll it out. And map out the top 5 questions or concerns that are going to be on each people's minds. And that's what I would say is do that mapping exercise and go, great, we know the players here, they may change, but we understand who that one individual, our entry point or our sponsor or leader effectively is going to have to work with too, right? They're working with people. I think that's a really, really key aspect. And you get to the emotional, psychological, heart of how they effectively work together with partners, how they adopt, because the organization culture is not some kind of 50-page document of how General Mills does things. It's how those exact 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 individuals, those leaders and their teams do things that you really have to truly understand.
I think that's true. I think that's what you're saying is true, period, in business. I always like to say business is about people.
Yep.
It's about people. It's so easy to forget that. But if you remember every day, business is about people, then you'll treat people differently, but also you will, know, I can learn from anybody. And I need to be interactive. If business is about people and I want to succeed, I need to be around people. I mean, I need to learn things and I need to pause and upgrade skills, but it's all about people.
Give you a real example without naming, company names or whatever, but this is the case right through this industry, the CPG industry, retail industry, and other sectors, and legal and construction and wherever else I've invested in technology companies. When we go to a customer, we don't go to that snack or beverage or, personal care product, large CPG and go, oh, geez, how do we really help them improve in stock? How do we really ensure that they're able to introduce new products? How do we really, make sure that the promotions are effective and get that in store? Let's really nail that pitch and tell them that pitch, and we'll keep nailing that pitch, and everyone in the organization, will get it and just fall in love with the concept and the idea. That's not how it works. The reality is, if I meet a VP of category management and ask, what is truly top of your mind? What keeps you up at night? What you're going to start finding out is that individual has been given an unreasonable task to empower their teams in a world where their budgets are limited and they're being expected to take on, let's say, more captaincies and more influence and more expectations from the retailer. And they are under pressure. What you'll typically find is their relationship with their boss, let's say the SVP of commercial or whatever it may be, is one where they're personally driven by that impressing that upper echelon of their organization. You got to learn that person's drivers. You got to learn that person's motivations. You got to learn what makes that individual tick. When you get to that SVP level conversation, what you might really realize is that individual is just under pressure by their CEO for quarterly results. And that's how they think. They just think, we're not going to be able to achieve something in the next quarter, we're screwed. You also start figuring out that individual is a risk taker or is extremely risk adverse. And that's a personality trait you have to work through. Then we go back to the VP category manager, level. They have to work with IT. They've got to work with technology. IT might be, your director of IT might be wondering, I'm slammed. How do I do this? Or they might be thinking, I should be doing these initiatives internally. I want to do the cool stuff. They might be challenged. Is my role at risk? What happens if this company comes in and does the AI and we're not relevant anymore in what we do? And then you go over to the account team, and what you realize with the account team is their negotiation with the retailer is so specifically nuanced that they don't actually need those incremental insights on how to introduce innovation or do more with less in their category management. But what they really need is to grow units, because that's the pressure they're getting from merchants. If you understand what motivates people, what drives people, what keeps them up at night, and you just create that map of the different players in the movie, and you come in and you try to orchestrate how these folks actually work together, that's what makes you a really trusted and successful partner, because they say, you get us. They're not saying you understand necessarily shampoo at Walmart. What they're saying is, you understand our culture and the journey we have to go through as an organization first before we even arrive at the point of enjoying these explosive benefits. And to your question earlier, what's that 19 million for? It's, like I say, it's that oxygen tank that we give to organizations and say, let's figure this out together, because we know, no doubt about it, when you're augmented with this level of decision-making, it's going to be game-changing for you.
Shavir, I've worked in large bureaucratic organizations. I've also been a co-founder of a software company and other companies. I've been on the, funding side as well. I've been on all sides, actually.
Sure.
But one thing I remember clearly about being an entrepreneur in a technology company, especially this was during the dot-com boom, but it was pretty stressful. People want results quickly. In some ways, you're trying to do the impossible. How do you deal with that pressure from so many different angles?
So here's how I deal with it, and I'm not sure it's the most positive way to deal with it. I become obsessed with hating, disliking, loathing failure. So I don't embrace fear of failure. I do the opposite. And I go, there's no way, sorry, I'm going to fail on this. I take that desire to not fail and use it ultimately as a very natural motivator to work more hours and to work even smarter at tackling things. From a stress perspective, you could talk all you want about building teams and we get more money into the company and there's less problems. And that's not really true. More people, more problems, more money, more problems, right?
Amen. I agree.
So the way I look at it is I go, look, focus really, really hard. What is the one, maybe two things that I can do to completely change the slightly left, slightly right, slightly up, slightly down track that we're going on, and to just rip it all up and make it explosive growth, right? If I could just hammer drop a big pivot, a big partnership, a big marquee customer signing, a big, investor, a big couple of hires that would break it out of this funk, that's what I would do. And the other way to manage stress, perhaps in a healthy way, is people have different methods of talking to people and family and support and downtime and whatnot. Is I would say two things that's really, really worked for me is, number one, find extremely hard shut off in the ever, evolving world and say, look, from Saturday 11 a.m. to about 6 p.m. and Sunday 11 a.m. 6 p.m., we're not going to think about work. We're going to completely go away from the industry and pretend I'm not passionate about this problem. The second thing I do is I try and disconnect from the passion aspect of it. So what I mean is, there was a time where I was really passionate about the business because of the solution or because of the problem I was tackling. What I instead decided is, let me get really passionate about problem solving. And then therefore the stress turns into a bit of a joy where you're saying, hey, I'm not stressed anymore. This is actually something I learned to love and learn to work with. So that's what I would say is my approach.
Well, Shavir, this has been a truly outstanding interview. It's really impressive what you've accomplished in really a very short period of time. And I'm super impressed with your technology and you as a leader. So thank you so much for taking time to visit with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. And thanks for giving a platform to epic entrepreneurs. Thanks for being an epic dean. And I'm really grateful for the fact that not only in this AI world, consumer brands world, but I think folks from the world of academia have truly over the years, thanks to individuals like yourself, really thought about how does this matter in terms of the future people who are going to be working in these businesses, and how do we truly make that impact to businesses? So allowing me to feed into that thought process is appreciated.
If you're finding value in this podcast, we greatly appreciate your support by subscribing to our YouTube channel. Additionally, following us on Apple and Spotify and leaving up to a 5-star review would be immensely helpful. We welcome any feedback or questions related to the podcast, as well as suggestions for further topics and guests. You can leave your comments on our YouTube channel, and rest assured that I will read each and every one of them. Please also take a moment to check out our podcast sponsors, as they play a critical role in keeping this podcast running. For more information on specific topics, timestamps, or links to articles mentioned during the podcast, head over to mattwallerpodcast.com.